listening to 90.1 FM WEFT. We're going to get you back to this interview, and as part of our wellness series, Health and Soulful Being, which you're hosting, Renee Angelah, and I've got Catherine Novak in here from Beads and Botanicals on North Broadway in Urbana. We were talking about her background training, and I was going to ask the question of how long have you been dealing with herbs and from your formal training. I know your informal training since you were a child, but from your formal training, how long have you been?
Well, let's see. I have to kind of base it on how old my son is. So about 20 years.
All right.
He's 18, and I started it right before I had him.
Isn't children a great marker? It's like, okay, I started this when so-and-so was 8.
I was studying a lot before that, but my actual formal training was about 20 years ago.
All right, sounds wonderful. And what made you go into these type of alternative therapies? Was there any particular reason, or was it a calling for you, or? Well,
a lot of it, it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of hard to say. Some people have certain health issues or things like that that bring to it. I think I had it more as a background, as I said, gardening when I was a kid and having that kind of closeness and having an opportunity to go back to it. It just seemed better to be working with things that would balance my body and help other people. So I guess an interest in helping people is a big part of that. And I'm drawn, being of service, and also I love plants. So I'm a plant person, and so herbalism kind of came as a natural for me anyway. Okay. So that's a big part
garden.
of it. Well, I have at times, and I'm reestablishing a garden. I've moved a little bit in the last year and a half or so. So I did have a rather large garden, and I have to admit, the Champaign-Urbana Herb Society had their sale on this past Saturday at Lincoln Square Mall, and I went a little crazy.
I missed it. I wanted to go.
Yeah, it was wonderful, but I'm also growing a lot from seed and everything.
Okay.
So.
And see, I can kill a weed, so.
Oh, well, okay. See, and my original business was called Wise Weeds.
Oh.
And the reason I called it Wise Weeds was because so many people put down plants like burdock and dandelion and things like that, and they're wonderful healing herbs. So, like for example, tonight is the first class that I'm doing for my herbal medicine chest class at the shop. It starts. It's a 5 weeks class, and I've got some people that are coming in for it. And what we'll do tonight, if it doesn't pour rain on us, is walk around downtown Urbana and find the wild plants that are growing, and as well as go over to the Urbana Free Library and look at the herb garden that they have there. So that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. Well, since we were talking about some of these wise weeds, like dandelion, why don't we talk a little bit about dandelion and its purposes and
Dandelion is wonderful. You have to make sure you're getting it from someplace that hasn't had a lot of lead exposure and chemical contaminants, okay? And in the city, sometimes you got to be a little extra careful. But in the spring, when it flowers, you can pick the flowers and batter them in a tempura batter and cook them, and it's a great source of beta-carotene, so there's a lot of nutrition. I don't eat the stems, but I've seen bunny rabbits eat the stems, so if your dandelions are on the lawn and they've gone to seed, if you've got rabbits in the area, and I've seen rabbits in this area, let them go and eat it because they love it.
Okay.
The leaves themselves make a good salad picked early, and when they're a little bit older and they're dry, they're really great as a tea used as a diuretic, which means it helps your body rid liquid.
That extra water weight.
Extra water weight, exactly. And it's funny. I try to explain to people I'm an herbal educator. I am not a I'm not a medical person.
Right.
Really, really important.
Yes.
But I've had people.
We'll put in this kind of disclaimer. We'll put in 2 disclaimers. First of all, we'll put in the disclaimer of this information is not to be used instead of medical expertise. If you feel like you have a medical problem, still seek help. We're just giving you some different, like you said, education, information of different things, but we not in place of what your medical treatments are right now. So that's one disclaimer. And then the second disclaimer I will say is that the views and opinions expressed in this segment is not necessarily, it is of the commentator. It is not a reflection on WEFT or its board or its station manager, because WEFT does not take an editorial stance. So I did want to put those two disclaimers in there, so don't come calling me and saying I did this and it didn't work.
The funny part is I've had people come to me who have had high blood pressure, for example, and they said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, you need to talk to your doctor. And they said, well, I don't have the money to go and see a doctor right now, or I lost my medical coverage, or different things like that. And I said, well, okay, if you're looking for something as an in between at least, that might be helpful, a raspberry leaf tea, which is also acts as a diuretic, and dandelion leaf tea can help if you're dealing with blood pressure or issues where you're retaining a lot of water, because they help you pee a lot. That's what a diuretic does.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people who are on blood pressure medication, what they're doing is taking diuretics to help reduce the excess liquid in their bodies.
Okay.
But it's not the go-to on a permanent basis in that sense.
Right.
But we're talking about the plant. It's not just the flowers. It's not just the leaves. The root is really good. Now, you can take the root, and if you're a patient and you clean it in the spring, early spring, or usually roots are gathered in the fall.
Okay.
You can clean them and roast them at a real low heat. That makes a good coffee substitute.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
that's not medicinal. That's more just a beverage.
Yeah.
But if you're using the dried roots and you chop them up and you dry them without roasting them, that's an herbal medicine, and that's a liver support herb.
Okay.
And it's a bitter tonic, and it tends to help with functioning of your liver. Now, if you've really messed with your liver, that dandeline's probably not going to be strong enough in the long run. But it's a very good supportive herb.
Almost like kind of a cleansing,
right?
You want to just kind of cleanse a little bit or whatever.
Exactly.
Who would have known that one little weed?
See, and as I said, I look at people and they say, oh, I know some people that they'll use some nasty chemicals on their lawns, and I'm like, why not eat it instead?
There you go. And then let the bunny rabbits eat the stems if you like.
Yeah, well, I saw that one time because we didn't get to cut in the lawn when we had a lot of rain one time.
Yeah, so see, there we go. We feed ourselves and we feed all the animals, and we're in the flow of nature. So there we go. What are other herbs that are more common for people? The most common herbs that people use.
Well, one of the ones you'll hear a lot about is echinacea, and that is purple coneflower. It's native. Echinacea purpurea is a species that's native to central Illinois and the Midwest.
Okay.
And that's really a really neat one. The roots usually what people think of using, but the flowers and the leaves are actually medicinal too, but most people aren't aware of that.
Oh, okay.
So they're medicinal in their own stages.
So they're like saying, take echinacea when you have a cold or whatever, it's usually a
preparation from the root.
Okay.
If you're lucky, you're getting a whole preparation. David Winston, who I studied with, has a herbal company, and they make combinations of it. So it depends on where you're getting your tinctures and things from, or if you're making them yourselves.
All right. So what is some of the purposes of the rest of the past the root of the echinacea?
Well, actually, they're all supportive of when you're dealing with, say, an oncoming illness or something. A lot of people make the mistake of taking a little bit of echinacea. Usually, if you feel like you've got a cold coming on, you want to take a lot of it early on. And I tend to prefer tinctures for that. So a tincture is a preparation where it's the herb is chopped up and then is, for better give you an idea, it's soaked or steeped in usually alcohol. It's a combination of alcohol and water, and that's usually prepared for at least 4 to 6 weeks, and then it's strained off and you use the liquid coming from that.
Okay.
That's basically what you're seeing when you see an herbal tincture in the store. Teas are more when you've got the dried herb. You want to work with dried herb for teas, and then you pour boiling water over an herb and let it steep for, I used to tell people it's at least 15 to 30 minutes. It's one of the things that people are surprised about when they're in my class. They go, really? I say, well, yeah. A lot of people have heard of, for example, German chamomile tea for being soothing, and I'll have people even come into the shop and they'll say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. I said, well, how long did you steep it? Oh, 2 minutes, because that's what people think of with teas. Now that may work when when you're doing English breakfast tea or Ceylon tea or something like that, because then it gets too tannic. It's too tannic and too tangy or whatever. But when you're working with herbal teas, you need to let the water pull the medicinal aspects out of the herb. So if you're going to drink an herbal tea, it's at least a 15-minute steep, half an hour better.
All right, sounds good. That's very interesting to know and very informative to know, because I actually just do that naturally when I brew a herbal tea or whatever. Well, actually, you know what? It's natural because I tend to forget it. so I'll put it in and I'll go off doing something else, and then 30 minutes later I'm like, oh, I forgot my tea. And then I go get my tea. So I'm actually doing the right thing. So if you are worried about the time, just go do something else, and then you'll forget and you'll come back. What about other herbs, like sage or basil?
Oh, okay. So we get into the culinary herbs.
Yeah,
Actually, culinary herbs are also very medicinal. Basil has a lot of antiviral properties.
Okay.
Most of your strongly scented herbs, your culinary herbs, have antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal qualities to them. And basil is one of my favorites, and this is the time of year to grow it fresh.
Yeah.
And the only thing is I have a tendency, I can almost overdose on it too much. I will give people a warning that if when I was looking to get pregnant with my son, and this is a few years ago, I was having difficulty conceiving, and I was eating too much basil. My version of too much basil was I would make pesto, and I have spoonfuls of it. I'm not talking like if you have just like a little bit. So most of the times though, it's a wonderful, wonderful herb, and as you grow at this time of year, you can make it into pesto and freeze it and have it all winter long, and it's very, very nourishing is the best way I could put it.
Okay.
Sage, if it's great for turkeys or stuffing or sausage if you're not a vegetarian. And if you want to use it medicinally, it's good to make a tea of it. Use about a teaspoon of it and pour hot water over a cup of it and let it steep again that 15-20 minutes. And it's great for a sore throat gargle. Good for rinsing your teeth. And also, my favorite use for it as far as medicinal is concerned is when you've got a really runny nose and you can't sleep because you've got a drip and all, and drink a cup of sage tea about 15-20 minutes before I go to bed, and it'll tend to dry things up. It can be very, very helpful. It may not last the entire night if you sleep really long, but I've found it's gotten me through the night at times when I've had something like that come up, so it's really helpful that way.
Oh, wonderful. What about like rosemary and thyme? It always seems like you can't do rosemary without doing some thyme with it. For some reason.
There's got to be a joke about thyme in there someplace, but I can't think of it.
Exactly.
Rosemary, well, the rosemary is considered to be for remembrance. That's one of the associations with it.
Okay.
But it's a very antioxidant herb. So a lot of times, and I'm not a nutritionist, but a lot of times people talk about being careful about free radicals in the body because they can cause damage. And rosemary is one of those herbs, and thyme as well, that can combat that because they've got very antioxidant properties.
Okay.
So real good that way.
Goodness.
And tasty too.
Yes, it is, especially when you're putting it on vegetables. My friend Jean Marie taught me this like amazing vegetable medley, and me and my daughter just love it. Like once a week at least, my daughter is asking for it. She's like, "When are you gonna make the vegetables?" And it's what originally you had parsnips,
potatoes, onions.
What?
Parsnips, potatoes, onions,
Parsnips,
rosemary,
potatoes, onions.
EVOO,
EVO. See,
extra virgin olive oil.
extra virgin olive oil,
Yeah, a little salt and
That's
pepper.
right, salt and pepper, some rosemary,
Some sweet potato.
some sweet potatoes. Yes, I mean just.
That sounds good.
And then I magnified it, so I've got tomatoes and mushrooms and eggplant.
And her variety is very
My variety,
It's
so
very good.
all of that stuff, and I always sprinkle some rosemary and thyme over it. And,
How do you cook it?
I bake it in the oven.
Oh, okay.
Just
Yeah.
roast it.
Yeah, we
Just
roast
roast
it in
it.
the oven, and it is like delicious. And I'm like one of those people that love all kinds of herbs and stuff. So for me, I'm like garlic powder. So
Well,
garlic is my thing.
The rosemary and the thyme are what make it, and I got it from Creole.
Ah,
Yeah,
see?
she's the one. So she taught me, and I taught you, and now we're teaching
Yes,
them.
we're out, and now we're teaching the WEFT community at large. So there you go. If you want a nice summertime recipe, there you go.
Well, that sounds like it not only could roast in your oven, but if you you have a grilling basket or something, you
Yeah.
can grill it on the outside or something like
Mhm.
that and do pretty well that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Grilling brings out the flavor with the herbs and things
Yes.
too. So or roasting. So
Right, exactly, and that's one of the great preparations of herbs. What's another preparation? Well, since we're talking about prep.
And I'm thinking, well, one of the things I mentioned was pesto, and pesto, if you don't know what it is, you take basil, or you can take spearmint or parsley and things to make pesto too. But one of the typical ones that I would do is a good cupful or two of fresh herbs without the stems, the basil, that extra virgin olive oil that we were just talking about, garlic, fresh garlic,
That's me, sorry.
and also pine nuts, or if you can't do pine nuts, sunflower seeds, raw sunflower seeds, cheese if you do dairy. You don't have to do it with dairy, and put them through a blender, and it gives a great paste that you can use with almost anything.
Oh,
I use it
wow.
for spaghetti. I use it for putting on bread. I tend to go a little bit overboard, but you could switch the herbs out in it too. So you not only basil, but also if you do it with parsley or other types of herbs, and you can add more olive oil to it if you want.
Okay, what about, you mentioned mint and spearmint. What are some of the properties of those mints? Is there a difference between like spearmint, mint, peppermint?
Well, mint is just kind of a general category. Spearmint and peppermint are two different varieties.
Okay.
Both spearmint and peppermint are really flavorful teas just in and of themselves. They're very tasty. Also, they can settle your stomach, freshen your breath. And people say, "Oh, freshen your stomach, freshen your breath, or settle your stomach." But herbs that are carminative, that help settle tummies and all, can be very, very helpful. Because you hear people, all sorts of advertisements on TV and all about this for upset stomachs. Well, why not do a tea or something like that instead that would help calm things down?
Yes.
Catnip tea is very soothing. Catnip's a type of mint.
Okay.
So it's a very soothing tea. It's good. It's a mild tea for children for colds and flu.
Okay.
But I will warn you, if you have catnip or even any kind of herbs and you have cats, watch out.
What
Cats,
happens?
because cats will tend, some cats will go after the herbs if you don't have them really secure, and go after them basically, especially catnip.
Wow.
Not all cats go crazy for catnip, but I've got a big boy cat who, he can do okay with dried catnip, but fresh catnip, he gets stupid, and you don't want to be around him because he's got all his claws. So you just be extra careful with them with that.
All right. What are other herbs that might kind of settle your stomach? Because I hear that being a problem a lot.
Well.
And then I'm gonna get back to the mint because I just thought about a question there too.
Well, in terms of digestion more than settling, ginger can be very good that way.
Yeah. I had a lot of ginger when I was going through the chemotherapy.
Did it help?
Yes, it did. It helped immensely. That and sunflower seeds. I had this kind of hypersalivation.
Oh, okay.
And so I kept sucking on sunflower seeds, and that would stop the hypersalivation for me.
Wow, okay.
So I did go back and tell my doctor that. He's like, I never heard of that, but okay, it worked.
Yeah, you go with what works. And ginger is actually, for people that travel and have airplane sickness or even motion sickness, ginger can be really helpful. And the funny part is you don't have to do ginger caps or anything. You can go to someplace like Common Ground or Strawberry Fields or something and get yourself candied ginger and just have a little bit of that, and it's very tasty.
Yes. But I will warn people, it's strong.
It can be strong, and if you have an ulcer, you probably don't want to take it because it could aggravate an ulcer.
Yes.
So that's one of those areas where you would want to be a little careful.
All right. So the question I had to go back to about the mint,
Uh-huh.
because one of the things I've heard and known for myself is that mint is very cooling.
Yes.
It kind of cools the body down, and I've noticed that because I put it in my hair oil, and I can always feel a sense of cooling when I put my hair oil on that has.
So are you talking about the essential oil
Um,
or the herb?
I'm talking both in both situations. So like I put mint in just water
Okay.
and kind of drink a little bit of it, and it's cooled my body down too.
Okay.
I was wondering if that is one of the properties, or that.
Well,
that
it's
kind of
the menthol in it is what you're feeling as a cooling property.
Okay.
So sometimes like the essential oil, and essential oils and herbs are not the same.
Right.
You don't use them the same way. Some people think they do, but they're not the
Actually,
exact same.
explain the difference between that, because you're right. Some people kind of interchange them, and
Okay,
they're not the
let's
same.
use peppermint as an example. The oil, the essential oil, when it's extracted, and that's not something that most people do at home unless you're a chemist. There's a process of steam distillation that pulls the oil from the plant, and it's very, very, very concentrated.
Yes.
So 1 drop of peppermint essential oil in water would probably be stronger than a teaspoon or tablespoon of the herb in a hot cup of water. And so it's very, very concentrated. So you have to. They're wonderful. They can be essential oils can be wonderful for healing, but you don't. They're not interchangeable.
No,
It's a different process,
Yes.
and it's not the same.
Absolutely, and with essential oils, you really want to watch it even just about consuming it or putting it directly on your skin or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's a whole other subject we can
Yes.
talk about. That's a whole other subject we can talk about.
And we talked about that last week, so I just wanted to, let the listeners know that there's a difference between the herbs that we're talking about, putting in the teas and the essential oils. So
Yeah, and some herbs like peppermint there's always somebody who's an exception to the rule. So if you're someone who's highly sensitive to things, don't mix your herbs. Try a little bit, and if something bothers you,
Yeah.
stop doing it. That's I tell people that in my classes. But generally speaking, peppermint is a very innocuous herb. It's not going to hurt somebody. If you have a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon of it, it's going to give you a stronger tea, and that's going to be about it.
Right.
It's not going to be an issue. Whereas with some herbs that you need to be careful. It's important to get a little more educated about them as you go on.
Yeah.
Dandelion is a food herb, and again, so when we were talking about dandelion,
Right.
you have a little bit extra of it. It's not for most people. It's not going to be an issue.
All right, good. That is wonderful. Let's get into some of your business, because you have a business downtown Urbana that's called Beads and Botanicals.
Yes, Beads and Botanicals.
And I've been in there, and I'm on the website right now, Beads and, not and, but the
Beads
letter
and.
N.
Yes.
The letter N, botanicals.com, and it says aromatherapy, bath and body, beads, beading supplies. What made you decide to kind of open up a shop with all of these? Because you have crystals in there and candles that you make. I still have your Vision Quest oil
Oh, okay.
that I bought so long ago, and that thing is scary sometimes. I've done it a couple times. It's been a little scary, but I've done it.
Why scary? I'm curious now.
I will anoint my head with it, and I tend to anoint my wrist.
Okay.
And then I will go to sleep, and I will have these amazing dreams that are just, and I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh wow. I mean, it just
Cool.
it's just almost, I can't explain it. I want to say almost like an out of body experience, but it's in the sense of where I feel like it's like I returned and I knew I traveled. And
Okay.
so that's where it was just like, sometimes it's been very, and I had also tried your incense first.
Okay.
That I just can't do.
Okay, what's that?
That one was just too powerful.
Okay. Everybody chooses what they
I'm
can
gonna
use.
say, I don't know what I did, but after that, the Vision Quest oil is a lot more.
It works better for
yeah.
you. Well, that's true. Certain things work better for certain people at times. So
Yes.
that's okay. Well, the reason I decided to do the combination of what I have in the shop comes from my own interests.
Mm-hmm.
I told you I'm a bit of a gardening fanatic.
Yeah.
And I grew up, it's kind of funny, my mom was an Avon lady for years, and people would say, are you going to grow up to be like Mom? Oh, yeah, yeah. And then later I was like, no, I'm not going to be like Mom, you know. And I looked back and gone, oh my gosh, I kind of am my mother in that sense. But it's with my own products.
Door to door, you know.
Well, and it's my own products
Right.
that I put together because I do blends from the different oils and all, and I have an interest in perfumery and the herbalism, and I'm a beading addict.
Yes.
And so it's nice. I have to remind myself that I've got to put things out for sale because I'd like to keep all the cool beads myself sometimes. But
I do that.
it's kind of a combination of things. Yeah.
So that's wonderful. And then you have like classes here at the shop, and you're coming up. There's an upcoming event. You have a spiritual health fair. So let's talk
we
about
have
that.
we have a psychic and health fair this Saturday, and it's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we have well, I'm going to be reading tarot. We have Deb doing energy art readings, which are a lot of fun. We have Marlita doing reflexology and Reiki, Helen doing chakra balancings and Reiki, and so we have some people doing a lot of health-oriented stuff. We have channeled readings. We have stone readings, and just a lot of different things. If you're more curious about what's going on, you can always stop by and see what's happening.
That's right. So that is on Saturday
This Saturday from 10 to 5 p.m.
All right. And
We have a lot of fun. It's a big party.
Yeah, I'm about to say it sounds like it with all the people that's coming in and doing things. And what are some of the? You did say you have a class tonight.
We have an herbal medicine class that's starting tonight. That's a 5-week series. We have Reiki 1 class coming up in June.
Okay.
We have a Facebook page, so if you look us up on Facebook, we have some of the updated classes on there as well.
All right, wonderful.
I'm my own webmaster, so sometimes the web page is not as updated as it could be.
Okay.
I
let's see. I'm the same way.
I'm trying to think. We will have some jewelry making classes. I haven't gotten the schedule set up for that for the summer yet, so we'll have a bunch of different things coming up. So.
All right. So make sure. Let's see. You just go to beadsandbotanicals.com.
Beadsandbotanicals.com.
And you can see the webpage, or you can go to the Facebook and like you said.
You can find us there too.
All right, so there we go. I thank you so very much for coming in and talking so much. We're going to have to do this again.
That would be fun.
and talk about something different. So, you know, like beads or something. I don't know. We're going to figure out candle making something. We're going to figure out something to come in and bring you back. Thank you so much, Catherine Novak, for coming in and doing this interview. Once again, you're listening to 90.1 FM WEFT. This is your girl, Renee Angelah, and another episode of Health and Soulfull Bee will be aired on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Channel 6 for UPTV Comcast users, and Channel 99 for the AT&T Uverse. And then, of course, like I said, I'll bring it to my YouTube page, Renee Angelah, ReneeAngelah. That's my YouTube page, and you can see all the episodes from there. So look for a new episode on Sunday. I don't know if it's going to be the one from last week or the one that's taped today, but we'll see what UPTV builds up. Thank you. As always, I'm sending out blessings of peace, love, and bliss. Until next week.